I smiled and asked her what else she knows about me and why she wanted to meet me. She told me that her husband had an affair with Jay for more than 2 years, but they had kept it hidden. After my illness came out, and my wife got the house, AP told his wife about the affair, left her, and moved into my house. I was perplexed because Jay knew that the house is leased and not owned. Also, she had just put up an act of finding another man because of my illness, but in real she had been cheating on me way before that. AP's wife was devastated by all this because, according to her, Jay had lured her husband into the affair because 2 years back he got an inheritance money from his father. AP looks quite older than us, maybe in the late 50s, and they have grown-up kids as well. She was okay to reconcile with her husband if Jay left him alone and hence wanted my help. I asked her if she was sure about this because AP has been cheating on her for 2 years. She said yes, because she didn't want a broken family and they had plans of retiring together, and now she cannot fathom living alone in the retirement age of her life. I'm not judging her at all, it's her choice if she wants to get back with her cheating husband. They were not yet divorced. I dropped the truth about my health and she was delighted. She congratulated me on my recovery. She asked me about my next plan and I told her that I was planning to have my own place. That's when I told her that the house in which Jay and AP were living was not owned but leased for the next 1.5 years. Her eyes lit up with all this information. I understood what she was going to do. She thanked me and left. The next morning I woke up with my phone buzzing nonstop from Jay's calls and messages. There were several voice notes that said, "Why did you lie about your health? Why didn't you tell me about your recovery? You cheated by hiding about the equity thing." It was so funny to hear all those panic messages. She then visited my office. I saw her through the conference room yet asked the receptionist to let her wait for a couple of hours. I know it sounds evil to say this, but I enjoyed seeing her anxious. The tables have turned. Months ago, I was living my life in the same anxiety and desperation, seeing her getting ready for her dates and coming back home drunk late night. When she was finally led into my cabin, she stormed inside and shouted at me. The same thing that she said on voicemails. I heard every bit of it. Rather, I enjoyed her rage. It was coming from a place of misery. I smirked at her and asked how long she had been cheating on me. She stood silent. She tried to lie that it was only after my illness. I gave her the look that I knew it all. I asked her to confess everything, told her I knew she had been seeing AP for 2 years, asked her if she was with me only for money. She confessed it was just casual friendship, which meant nothing. It was only after the news of terminal illness that she slept with AP. I was like, cool, this is what you do when your husband is dying, you sleep with another man. She was still lying. I pestered her to speak the truth. She started crying and pleading to get back together. She said I had no substantial savings, so when she got to know that AP inherited $1 million wealth from his father, she went behind him. But AP was not ready to leave his wife until Jay proved herself to be worth and not a gold digger. So, she offered to give the house to AP if he left his wife and married Jay. So yeah, she was planning to deceive him as well, but AP's wife discovered me and dropped the truth bomb just at the right time. I smiled and asked her to leave. She requested to meet for dinner. I refused and asked her to leave. She was like, now that everything is sorted, let's get back together and restart our lives, now I have no complaints from you. She tried to use her tears to get away with her request, but she forgot that she was no longer my wife and that I would give in to all her demands. I asked her to leave, else I would call security on her. I tell you, nothing is more fulfilling than seeing the defeated face of your cheater partner. I'll update after settling down with my new life. Update 3, hey people, I'm feeling so happy to write this update. My latest diagnosis report confirms that I have healed completely. I have lost almost 25 pounds from the time I was diagnosed with liver disease. It had to do a lot with my lifestyle. I was so busy making money for my family, read ex-wife, that I didn't care about my health. And of all it for what? For nothing. She divorced me as soon as she got to know I was dying. The last I updated on this thread was Jay showing up at my workplace asking for a chance. Actually, what happened was, after meeting with me, AP's wife went straight to AP and told him that Jay was a gold digger and was with him just for the money. Until now, AP was defending Jay because she had let him move into the house. But when he got to know that the house was leased and she soon would be completely dependent on him, he felt betrayed. There were several other lies Jay had told him to manipulate him into her skirts. She was indeed behind him for his inheritance money, but AP's wife was adamant about not letting that money go to Jay because it was for her children. Eventually, AP's wife was successful in throwing out Jay from AP's life. I don't know what dynamics AP was having with his wife and his family. AP's wife used to be in touch with me earlier and gave me updates, but now we don't talk. I asked her a few times how could she forgive her husband's cheating, but she was reluctant to take personal questions, so I didn't ask her further. Ex-wife tried all means to reconcile with me, calls, emails, texts. When it became too much, I blocked her from all platforms. When she got to know that I was getting a place for myself, she showed up at my office and sent me flowers and gifts at work. The thing is, she doesn't have a job. The house lease is about to expire in a couple of months. I got to know from one of my neighbor buddies that Jay had rented out one of the rooms of the house to a bachelor for over a year. The rent covers her other expenses. I don't know how else she is surviving without an income. Maybe she's sleeping with other men for other stuff. Anyways, now I believe everything happens for a reason. A good reason. My health is sorted. I have bought a place for myself. It's a small 2-bedroom penthouse, but it is cozy and I have designed it to my taste. I couldn't be happier. A lot of you, even my friends and family, recommended that I start dating again, or at least start meeting women. I'm yet to do that. Some of the office juniors recommended social media platforms, especially for 45+ age group people who are restarting their lives as 2.0. I have installed it but not very confident about getting into the modern dating game. People have also cautioned me against scammers on these dating sites, so I'm slightly scared. Just don't want to get into any new mess again. Any tips or suggestions are highly appreciated. Thanks for all the support and advice. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Discovered my wife went on a honeymoon with her AP, after our marriage. Then I went to her work and exposed them. I, 29 male, had just relocated to a new city. It was during one of those nights of trying to get acquainted with the new surroundings that I met my current wife. We would go on to date for a year before tying the knot shortly after. The initial stages of our relationship were pretty much like any other new marriage. Blissful, full of adoration for each other, and wanting to spend any chance you get together. But some red flags were already looming in the background. While dating, my wife had a lucrative job that came with many perks and benefits that would trickle down to me by virtue of being her better half. My wife introduced me to her boss and seemed to be going on well as we got along just fine. I had to play the supportive husband as my wife's job entailed a lot of traveling to various states for meetings. I didn't make much out of it, as it was usually a team traveling together with their boss in tow. I never complained until this one time, 2 weeks after the wedding, when my wife talked of going on a business trip with her boss only. It only seemed right that we spend a bit more time together since we were still in the honeymoon phase. I mentioned the same to her and even tried to stop her, but a furious fight occurred instead. We had never had a fight before. She called me unreasonable and I couldn't help but wonder a little about these business trips. In the end, she definitely still traveled with her boss, totally disregarding my feelings. Feeling distraught, I turned to my friends for advice and their take on the matter. In unison, they all suspected that something was amiss. This just escalated my curiosity, but I had no option but to wait for her return. As it was pointless trying to have a serious discussion with her right then. She came back after a week. I played it cool to avert any suspicion. I attempted to unlock her phone when she slept to no avail. She had altered her PIN. Undeterred, I secretly watched her moves for the next few days with the hopes of retrieving the PIN. That came to fruition as I saw her key it in and mastered it. When I next got a hold of her phone, I wasn't ready for what met my eyes. My wife had changed her boss's name to a woman's. But I was able to join the dots because of the nature of the conversation in the threads and the numerous nudes exchanged between the two. You can imagine my shock. She had been unfaithful all along. I felt so torn and confused. The so-called business trip was what she considered her real honeymoon. Those were the exact words she used while chatting with her boss. It now became apparent that she had gotten married to me to conceal the rumors going around about dating her boss, a married man. Suddenly JT hit me that all the benefits and preferential treatment she got from her boss were due to their affair and not on merits. How could have been so gullibles, but whoever thinks straight when so deep in love and at the initial stages of a hopeful marriage full of hopes, dreams and plans together hooked screenshots and sent them to my phone for evidence and discreetly deleted any traces of these acts. I'm not sure if it was my fury that made me avenge, but I just know despite her hurting me, I wasn't proud of what I did after. I took my wife's computer and edited her presentation that was due the next morning. I opted to add an intimate photo of her and her boss from their recent honeymoon as the second slide, leaving everything else untouched, and as expected. The next morning she went to work with her presentation unsuspecting of anything. About an hour later, I received a call from a very frantic and hysterical wife of mine. She had done the presentation and instead exposed herself and her boss to all and sundry. She had the audacity to say I had ruined her life and all that she had worked for. What ensued next was her coming home raving mad and trying to hit me. I asked her to leave to avoid any other confrontations at that point, and she refused. Luckily her cousin lives nearby, so I called on her to come and salvage the situation, after explaining what had transpired. She came in and whisked my wife away as she kept screaming at the top of her voice, causing drama. I just wanted peace of mind and somehow felt relieved for how she felt because frankly, she deserved it and more. So far I've filed for an annulment of the marriage. We've only been married for under a month, and I don't wish to be associated with her in any way, ever. So, I'll emerge pretty unscathed except for the tremendous emotional trauma. My wife, who doesn't even deserve that title, tried slithering her way back to her boss's arms. But he too wanted nothing to do with her. He opted to now focus on his family going forward. She has become miserable and a shadow of herself, depressed. So, I'm wondering, was it worth it to throw a good man in marriage to boot under the bus? All the time, emotions, and money I invested in this held no water after all. I felt so betrayed, used, heartbroken, and sad for all the time I wasted that I'll never get back. All in all, I've taken my lessons and have decided to take it one day at a time as I wait for the annulment to be finalized.